My hose pipe has just broken, so I'm going to take a little look and see what's gone wrong. This is a stop end. You push it on like that, pull it down to release it. So let's take that off. And this may be on very tightly, incidentally, but normally you can unscrew this very easily and get into the grip end of this unit. And I can see straight away that there is no hose pipe cracked off and left in there. This is quite simply pulled out of this union end. So how to put it back in again and how to make sure that it doesn't actually pop out again. So as I say, the best thing that I think you can do is to always start with a nice clean cut end. Now the tools for this job, I've got 3 tools on the table. I've got this kitchen knife, which is what a lot of people will have in their home. I've got a Stanley knife, which has also got a very nice sharp blade and does the job very nicely. I've got a pair of scissors, which might just do the job. They're kitchen scissors, they would do. And these are household scissors, which you're going to struggle a little bit, but they would probably do. So let's try each type. Here's another knife that you would find in the kitchen. Let's just have a little look and see what how we can cut this nice and straight. That was very easy. You've got to mind your fingers, obviously, when you do this. It's complete common sense. If you're not familiar with cutting things with a knife, just be really careful. Keep your fingers out of the way, and let's do it again. Hold it perhaps with your thumb there, not too close. Start it off with your thumb like that. Just keep on running it through. Try and keep the knife straight as you can. There it is. Comes off. A little bit tatty because this is a serrated edge and it's just cutting through the webbing and leaving it a little bit tatty. But that's okay. That would actually do and go into this application here. Let's try a nice sharp knife. It's not overly sharp at all, but I think this next method will just get rid of those burrs. So let's try that again. I'm using this block of wood. A chopping board would do just the same. So let's try this, and then we'll just breeze through the other 2 types of cutting, because I find that you can find videos on the internet on how to do things, and they might say, right, get a Stanley knife, cut through your hose pipe, and the job is done. And then you go to do the job, and you think, well, I don't have a Stanley knife, so what can I use? So I'm just giving you all the alternatives that a standard household would have. So that knife does quite well. This knife does very well indeed. Just be careful when you're cutting. Here's a Stanley knife, extremely sharp, cuts through like a knife through butter. A really nice cut. Very, very nice indeed. Here's a pair of scissors, kitchen scissors, really beastie. Very nice indeed. Cuts through this reinforced hose very well, very nicely. And here is a pair of ordinary household scissors, and in fact a little bit harder to get through, but that's okay. Because it was harder, it's at a slight angle. So I think my favourite method, here's 2 pairs of scissors, 2 knives. My favourite method is going to be with the Stanley knife. But use any of those other methods. So now we've cut our pipe, let's take a look at how this goes into this fitting. So the hose pipe goes into this little gap between this outer circle of little cut plastic sections and pushes on right the way down to about there internally. Now, the way that I've found over the years to make this, if you just push straightforwardly, sometimes some of these little flaps, which are quite easily bent over, can either get bent inwards or outwards too much and crack off. And so a really good method of doing this is to twist as you go. So, common mistake that everybody makes, including me repeatedly by the way, is not to put this flange nut end, or the nut end if you like, onto the pipe first. You then put this on, tighten it up, and it cramps and pulls these little ring of flaps nice and tight through a little angle at the end there, nice and tight onto the hose, and it's perfectly good enough then for mains water pressure. If you like, to make sure that you know that it's gone nicely into this joint here and recessed into the full depth, you can have your thumb as a gauge. And now you can see how far it's gone in, which is absolutely ideal. So there we have it. Once this is in, and as you can see, check all the way around, make sure none of these little plastic flaps have either been pushed in or you've accidentally cracked them off. They all need to be present, otherwise this little connection here will leak. So by hand, you now have to screw this up as tightly as you possibly can, holding on to this as tight as you can here, and finally, to get the final turn on it, if you are not very strong, get somebody who is stronger than you to do this last procedure, or you can get a wrench to do it if you have something like a plumber's wrench, a pair of gland pliers if you like, or a very big set of pliers. This is now, I've managed to get a little bit more turn on it. This is now completely waterproof and is able to pop back on that gun. So there we are, job done. There's a few more applications I could show you here, so that we can take a look at all things Hozelock. And so just to show you a few little Hozelock items, this is a stop end. So when you put this stop end connector onto, let's say, something like this spray gun, you pop it in like that, and when your hose is connected and fully powered with water, when you take this off, the water actually stops at this point here. So this is very convenient for actually putting devices on and off. You don't have to go and turn the tap off to stop water gushing out. So that's extremely convenient. So that's called a stop end, and you can tell that it's a stop end because it has this red ring on it, and that denotes a stop end. Here's a connector which isn't a stop end, so this is an open running stop end, if you like. So if you were to pop this on your gun, this is a very old one, as you can see, covered in cement, and I've used that over the years on building projects, and it really has been battered. When you take that off, the water will run out. So when you go to the shop or go online and you want to buy, should we say, a connector end like this, if you want it to stop the water coming out when you take the device off, that's the one to get. If you're not too bothered about that, then this is the other one. As I say, an extremely battered one, but I've got it in this tin because it still works. Here is another hose end, and so that pops on there, and this adjusts like this. These are extremely inexpensive, so a very good idea if you want to try and save money. And this has got an adjustment on it, so it goes from straight out a straight, should we say, a spray of water to a fine spray of water if you turn it clockwise and anti-clockwise. Just to take a look at one or two other little things, just in case you want to join a hose pipe. Here's a new one that I've got. Bought this from B&Q. I don't know whether it's Hozelock, I'm not sure. But anyway, extremely handy if you've got two lengths of hose and you want to end up with a longer hose. So let's just take a little look at how we would do that. Let's cut our hose pipe. Now we have two hoses that we want to join to make a longer hose, and here are our cut ends. So it's the same as before, very straightforward. These are a slightly more different design to, should we say, let's get a Hozelock one out, to that. Very, very slightly different design. It's exactly the same, should we say, principle, except for these stand upright and are then pushed in by screwing this back nut, and these are a little more tapered inward. I think possibly the reason for these latest ones is because some people do say they find it difficult to get these in and accidentally push these little tabs over, sometimes break them off or push them around. So yeah, makes sense to me. Anyway, so let's put this on. Always remembering, don't forget to put the back nut on first. Let's now pop this on here. Very easily done with this one. I haven't used this type of fitting before. And you can see it going right into the fitting. This is really important to make sure that this has gone right in. See how far? You have to make sure that it's gone in. Push it home really well, twisting as you go. And let's now do this up. Just finger tight. I'll tell you why in a minute. You can tighten one against the other when you're finished. So there it is, going in, and I can feel that hitting the back of that flange there, so I know it's in. For those that aren't that familiar with which way to turn things, to tighten and untighten, we have a saying in this country, in the UK, righty-tighty, as in turning right, which is clockwise, righty-tighty, to tighten it, and lefty-loosey. So, yeah, okay, fair enough, but it's actually something you can remember. righty-tighty is a good one. So now you've got these two finger tight. You can then grab hold of it, curl your fingers around like this, and then start to tighten and drive these, tighten them all the way as much as you can. And you can see these tighten a lot. Now these are very tight now, and I can assure you that you can see how this nut has pulled all these, should we call them little teeth or separated little pieces here in the joint, and it's pulled them all really tight. Finally, you have to connect your hose to a tap, and here is a type of tap fitting. So if we take this off, you can see here, let's undo this. This screws on to a garden tap end, and it has one of these push fit connectors on the end. And this is an extremely convenient tap fitting end. So remember, righty-tighty, clockwise if you like, do it up nice and hard, and then you can apply the push fit connector, and that is an extremely satisfactory way to connect your hose. Again, this one is actually a Hozelock connector, and you pull down on it like this to disconnect it. You push it firmly up to connect it, turn your tap on, and the hose is working. So there we are. Do bear in mind that these are Hozelock fittings. A lot of other fittings in the UK use exactly the same and are interchangeable, but just be aware some aren't. So I hope you found that useful, and I'll see you in the next video.